Welcome back to the Biz Intel, the weekly briefing where we share business stories, especially at the intersection of economics and technology from around the world. Last week, we stopped at the crossroads where electricity and data meet. This week, that flow doesn't slow down at all. It seeps deeper into land, steel, and even balance sheets. As corporations, investment funds, and governments pour capital into the physical infrastructure of AI, a new substrate is coming into being, one that transmits not only data, but power. If the 20th century built pipelines for oil, then the 21st century is erecting pipelines for intelligence. Every data center that rises out of a desert or suburb is no longer just a technical facility. It is a knowledge plant, a symbol of the global redistribution of technological power. And within this rising tide of capital, one question echoes: who really controls the foundations of intelligence? And what price will we ultimately pay for it? Humans and machines, the new counterweight of the world. Data temples, where electricity turns into intelligence. Blue Owl Capital, one of the largest private credit funds in the US, has just injected $3 billion in equity into Stargate, New Mexico, a data center project built specifically for OpenAI. The project will consume around 4.5 gigawatts of power, equivalent to the needs of a mid-sized city, and is backed by major banks like Goldman Sachs, MUFG, and BNP Paribas through a loan package totaling $18 billion. This is not just another piece of tech infrastructure, it's a new kind of power plant where electricity doesn't turn into light or heat, but into intelligence, through millions of chips that are learning, reasoning, and generating language. And it doesn't stop there. Blue Owl has put down deposits across a series of other projects, from Meta's hyperscale data center in Louisiana to the $27 billion Hyperion complex in Texas. Their projected capital for this segment alone has exceeded $100 billion, a figure that shows AI infrastructure is becoming the hottest investment theme on the planet. But power is not just in how much electricity you consume, it lies in how tightly you control and protect these data temples. Corporations no longer simply buy transformers or cooling fans, they hire private security teams. Firms like Securitas or Control Risks now offer red teams, experts who role-play as hackers or physical intruders to test every layer of defense, from fences and truck gates to HVAC systems. Where data centers were once just server warehouses, they have now become strategic national targets to be guarded like defense infrastructure. On the geopolitical front, the US has just formally banned NVIDIA from selling its B38 chips, high-end GPUs designed for AI, to China, even though the B38 had already been downgraded from the original version. The ban directly targets the capability to train gigantic models. As a result, Chinese companies either have to go around the restrictions by renting infrastructure in third countries, or break their models into smaller units to slip under control thresholds. A single political decision in Washington can shift the global compute map overnight. Amid this frenzy, a particularly interesting group of newcomers has appeared. Companies that used to mine crypto, now pivoting to mining intelligence. Crusoe Energy, which once provided infrastructure for Bitcoin miners, is now partnering with Oracle to build a massive data center in Texas serving OpenAI. The project, codenamed Stargate, a name that sounds straight out of sci-fi, is slated for completion in 2028, with a footprint comparable to an international airport. Crusoe is now valued at around $13 billion, largely thanks to riding the wave of AI infrastructure investment. From a distance, it's easy to see why infrastructure has become the true power layer of artificial intelligence. The financial scale of this wave dwarfs any traditional software or startup model. Each large-scale data center requires tens of billions of dollars in capex, forcing investors to construct multi-layered capital stacks, from private equity and commercial banks to infrastructure bonds. At that point, AI ownership no longer sits with founders or engineers. It belongs to whoever controls the flow of capital. The security posture of these facilities has become nearly as sensitive as that of defense bases. A data center serving billions of AI queries a day only needs a few minutes of outage or leakage to cause billions of dollars in damage. That's why multi-layer protection, from human security, physical security, to cybersecurity, is turning into a new badge of technological power. And ultimately, infrastructure is where politics meets technology. From chip bans and energy policy to environmental regulations, every factor is entangled, transforming power plants and data warehouses into the new borderlines of globalization. When a country can't buy chips, it is forced to build its own infrastructure. When electricity is insufficient, it must negotiate to share energy. Every such decision carves a new fault line onto the map of AI power. This week might not bring any breaking news at the algorithm layer, but at the infrastructure layer, every centimeter of land being leveled and every power line being raised carries deep political meaning. And even though we've spent weeks talking about infrastructure, the story never really gets old, because this is the backbone, the foundation on which every AI ambition must stand. Capital flows restructured. If infrastructure is the skeleton of the AI world, then capital is the bloodstream flowing through it. Every data center that goes up, every cluster of chips that comes online is fed by capital circuits stretching from New York to Riyadh. The investment frenzy around artificial intelligence is no longer just a story about a few tech giants. It has become a full-scale restructuring of global capital markets. At the heart of the storm, the name most often mentioned is SoftBank. After months of relative quiet, Masayoshi Son's conglomerate suddenly liquidated its entire Nvidia stake, worth nearly $6 billion USD, and piled up over $30 billion USD in cash just to get ready to go all in on OpenAI. This move is like a pivot from the supply side of chips to the demand side of intelligence, from selling shovels to digging for gold. For Son, AI is not just another tech wave. It's a chance to resurrect the Vision Fund empire. This time not by betting on mobile apps like Uber or WeWork, but by going straight for the infrastructure of intelligence itself. On a different beat, private equity giants like BlackRock and Apollo Global are acting as the shadow banks of the AI era. They're not racing to own the latest language model or app. They're quietly accumulating tangible assets, land for data centers, power purchase agreements, cooling equipment, and especially the rights to exploit compute capacity, to assemble infrastructure portfolios worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Step by step, they are turning compute power into a new asset class, much like how oil was once financialized into futures contracts half a century ago. This shift is pulling governments into the game. In Washington, policymakers are proposing loan guarantee programs for chip manufacturing and data centers, similar to policies once applied to renewable energy. If enacted, AI would no longer be just a software sector. It would become a strategic infrastructure industry shielded by national policy. In the language of economists, this is a new generation industrial policy, where intelligence is treated like steel or electricity, something that demands investment, oversight, and strategic reserves. The change is reverberating across Silicon Valley. Venture capital funds, long used to making bets based on instinct and growth narratives, now have to relearn old lessons about cash flow, where real profit matters as much as bold vision. They are no longer investing in ideas that make the world a better place, but in very concrete things: machines, production lines, chips, power. GPU leasing contracts. An AI startup now raises capital like an energy company, with projects, CapEx plans, and payback timelines, not just a product demo. Even Sequoia Capital, a global symbol of venture investing, has had to change captains mid-wave. That shift is more than a personnel move. It signals that the era of gut-driven investing is fading. The new leadership is tasked with defending returns in a time when every valuation is inflated by AI euphoria. And as veteran firms become more cautious, new funds rush in with unprecedented speed and appetite for risk. As long as a founding team claims to be building a specialized language model for healthcare, finance, or law, they can be valued in the billions before generating a cent of revenue. That explains why Series A rounds for AI companies have become so wild that some projects raise money before a single line of code is written, with dozens of investors wiring deposits just to reserve a seat. Capital now behaves like the blood pressure of the whole system, constantly high and under strain. Startups are no longer raising capital just to build products, but to survive in a money-burning race for compute resources. Meanwhile, major corporations are redefining the relationship between capital and technology. Tesla has announced plans to build its own chip fabs, a bold move at a time when the EV market is stagnating. For Elon Musk, owning chips is not merely about supply security. It's the doorway to a new business model, renting out their own compute power, much like Amazon did with AWS. If Tesla pulls it off, they will turn training capacity for AI models into an asset, a new kind of financial product on their balance sheet. On the other side, OpenAI is sticking to its strategy of multi-layer capital raising. The company is currently in talks to raise over $6 billion more, slicing equity into pieces for different investor groups while also exploring the option of spinning off its infrastructure arm in preparation for an IPO. This approach allows OpenAI to maintain its breakneck growth while spreading risk across the entire surrounding financial ecosystem. If successful, it could become the first tech firm to operate like an intelligence bank, where AI models are not only used, but can also be leased, rehypothecated, and monetized as a new class of financial assets. All these moves reveal that capital is no longer auxiliary fuel. It is the nervous system of AI. Every investment deal is not just a quest for yield, but a declaration of power. Whoever supplies the capital controls the breathing rhythm of technology. SoftBank is choosing OpenAI over NVIDIA to stand on the side of intelligence, not just tools. Blue Owl is choosing data centers over software to seize the physical infrastructure of the digital age. And as banks, infrastructure funds, and individual investors pour into this current, AI is no longer just a story of innovation. It has become a global financial system that is actively restructuring itself. The reverse effect, how AI is reshaping emotions and markets. But power is not only about who holds the capital, it's also about where that capital flows and what it transforms along the way. Capital, like blood in a body, has never been static. It circulates through increasingly complex channels, creating new centers of power. And while capital continues to seek refuge in infrastructure and models, another wave is rising. Artificial intelligence is beginning to collide directly with the human layer, where emotion, ethics, and creativity are put to the test. That is where the real conversation between humans and algorithms begins. In Silicon Valley, two approaches to AI are slowly diverging. OpenAI is betting on scale. They believe that the more data and compute you connect, the likelier you are to unlock breakthroughs. Anthropic, by contrast, focuses on reliability, trying to train AI models that can self-regulate and explain their own behavior. Though they walk different paths, both are chasing the same question. How do we create an artificial intelligence that is truly responsible? And while the West debates the limits of intelligence, the East is taking another route, spreading intelligence. In China, players like Minimax, Jipu, and Moonshot are building compact language models strong enough to run on personal computers. Rather than competing on size, they leverage community, open sourcing their models and inviting developers everywhere to tweak and improve them. If OpenAI is building a tall tower, China is laying a wide foundation. And from that wide base, a new order could emerge. One where intelligence is no longer locked in labs, but diffuses outward as a kind of public resource. Yet, as intelligence spreads, it also touches the most fragile territories of human life, our emotions. Online, apps like Janitor AI and Replika are quietly opening a world where millions of people chat, flirt, and even hold wedding ceremonies with AI partners. A Japanese student says she prefers talking to AI because it never interrupts me. The sentence sounds light, almost casual, yet it reveals something profound. Technology is no longer only meeting needs, it's filling emotional voids of the modern age, and not just in love, but in creativity too. When Coca-Cola let algorithms design its Global Joy campaign, many artists called it the death of ideas. Others, however, saw a new possibility. If AI can sense color, rhythm, and audience reactions in real time, then creativity is no longer a static product. It becomes a living dialogue. In that world, the line between human and tool blurs. Artists create ideas that AI refines, and AI in turn learns human emotions to create more. Each side mirrors the other. And in that reflection, we begin to see the human in the machine and the machine in ourselves. But precisely where AI comes closest to emotion, fatigue is also appearing. Among engineers and lab teams, it's now called AI fatigue. After Elon Musk's xAI lost several top executives in just 1 month, industry insiders began talking about an invisible pressure. The pace of innovation is outstripping the creator's own ability to make sense of it. Every update demands millions more GPUs, thousands more training hours, and a fresh wave of market expectations. We're building the future, but we no longer know who will live in it, one engineer told The Information. It sounds like a complaint, but it's really a confession about the hollow space between progress and meaning. People are not leaving just because they're tired, but because they've realized that the boundary between creativity and mechanical work is fading. In an era where every product is branded AI-powered, humans are no longer inventors as much as operators, keeping the machines running on tempo. Where engineers once taught AI how to think, they now stand guard to ensure it doesn't spiral out of control. That mix of pride and fear toward one's own creation is becoming the default mood in Silicon Valley. From that fatigue, AI is sinking into the operational layer of the economy, where models start handling tasks once thought to require human intellect. Brex, the corporate finance company, says 80% of the code for its new product was written by Claude Code, Anthropic's coding model. Zip AI can read hundreds of contracts, analyze terms, and negotiate optimal pricing on its own. Perplexity, an up-and-coming search engine, is testing conversational commerce. A user simply says, "I want a light pair of running shoes for the fall," and the system searches, compares, orders, and pays. Transactions no longer require actions, just language. As transactions move from clicks to words, AI steps from tool to active agent in the value chain. At first glance, this shift sounds like mere convenience, but it's really structural. The question, will AI replace humans, is growing obsolete. The real question is, who controls the workflows that AI operates? In many companies, employees are no longer asked to be creative. They're trained to interact with the model. to prompt, fine-tune, and oversee its outputs. A new class of workers is forming, not pure programmers, not pure artists, but intelligence trainers. They work side by side with machines and understand the machine's language better than that of their coworkers. And as models grow more human-like, the humans inside these systems are pressured to behave more like machines. Speed, efficiency, and reproducible precision become the new metrics of competence. In such a world, getting it right matters more than doing it differently, and delivering output is valued over asking questions. That's when we realize that the biggest impact of AI may not lie in how many people it replaces, but in how it reshapes our own understanding of what human value is. The spin of capital and the limits of humans. To wrap up this week, the global market shows a clear polarization. At the infrastructure layer, the race to expand data centers and energy capacity keeps escalating, from Blue Owl and CoreWeave to Tesla. At the capital layer, major financial institutions are shifting from risk-on investing to long-term infrastructure building, turning compute power into a financial asset, the way crude oil was once packaged into futures contracts. And at the human layer, signs of fatigue are emerging. Engineers are leaving XAI, and companies like Perplexity and Anthropic are pivoting their models in search of real, sustainable revenue. The whole system is moving from a phase of excitement to a phase of selection, where technical prowess is no longer the only edge. The ability to operate, integrate, and maintain balance becomes decisive. AI is leaving the lab and stepping into everyday life, and along that journey, the boundaries between technology, finance, and society are dissolving. As capital accelerates, the pace of innovation is being constrained by the system's slowest link, humans. And perhaps that very slowness, however small, is what keeps this entire era in balance. Amid all the billion-dollar figures and deep political moves, the story circles back to a very basic, very human moment. Somewhere in the New Mexico desert, an engineer is inspecting a row of just-powered servers. The fans hum steadily. On the monitoring screens, streams of code scroll by. The moment the system begins to think. Outside, the evening light glints off rows of solar panels. Everything looks so ordinary that it's easy to forget that within just a few square kilometers, tens of billions of dollars are in motion every single day. Maybe that's the truest image of our age, a world where technology has become part of the landscape, and humans, small as we are still the ones who flip the first switch. In the spinning loop of capital, energy, and data, there remain these very human moments, quiet, focused, and deeply meaningful, that keep the giant machine running.